We're continuing our series as we've been talking about our discipleship pathway, and we still have some magnets back there. If you want to put one of these on your fridge, it just has our discipleship pathway for you. And to love God, love others, and serve like Jesus. Those are the only three things we are going to be asking you to do. Last week we talked about loving God, and we looked at it from the aspect of corporate worship, which is what we're doing right now. And then private worship. I hope you got some private worship in this past week. And so we'll move on today talking about loving others. And now, a lot of times when you think about that, you're thinking about serving the world, which we'll get into that next week. This has to do with more as far as loving others concerning believers. And so we're going to talk about the need for community in our faith family. So the definition of community is a feeling of fellowship and sharing common interest and goals. And what we see in Scripture is God established the need for community very early on. When you get to Genesis chapter 2 in your Bible, after God had created everything, we have here in verse 18, and the Lord said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make a helper comparable to him." So he creates Eve, and the first community is established. It is not good for us to be alone. Christianity is not meant to be a solo sport. It is meant for us to do with other believers. Now, obviously, there's only 2 people back then, but now we've got some 7.4 billion people in the world. But it tends to be at least more easy today than ever for people to isolate themselves because relationships take work, right? But I think another reason we isolate ourselves is, at least maybe this might be true for my generation, because I hate this, but I'm technically a millennial. I know. In our young adult class, I'm like, you millennials, and then I look it up, and technically I'm a millennial. I'm an old millennial, though, as I like to put it. But it seems that people are making the mistake of, instead of having genuine community in their life, fellowship with other people, they replaced it with social media, that they can find their community from a social aspect from the internet. But the problem is, what happens is we have broad connections, right? Like I have some 1,200 friends. I mean, to be honest, do I really have 1,200 friends? No. We have broad connections, but they're very shallow connections, right? And that doesn't help us grow as people. We need connections with others, preferably in our faith family, that are not just strong connections, but deep connections. As one psychologist put it, communities gather around a concept or a common goal, which our concept, our common goal is to love God, love others, and serve like Jesus. Communities gather around a concept or a common goal, not around a collection of content. Although content plays a major role, it is not the impetus for community. So, what we have in social media is a collection of content, not genuine community. Now, I'm not here preaching that Facebook is the devil or any of that kind of stuff. It can be helpful in our community, but it is not the community itself. It's not a replacement for it. This past week, I was reading article after article about how people are getting lonelier and lonelier. Even though we're connected, people are continuing to get lonelier and lonelier, especially my generation, and why that was. Over and over again, we're replacing genuine community, genuine relationships with people for something we find on the internet. And the issue with that is when we're on Facebook or any of those things, we only give people the highlight reel, correct? We only give people what we want them to see so they can have a certain impression about us. Now, it doesn't mean you're being fake necessarily. I mean, I like posting pictures of my kids or something related to the church. I saw a picture this morning of little Caden, who's just hours old. That was really cool. So it can be useful, but it can also easily allow us to create a mask for ourselves too, right? Presenting ourselves in ways that aren't realistic. But at the same time, you're not going to air your dirty laundry out. At least I don't think you should on Facebook or any type of social media. But you should have a community wherewith you can bear each other's burdens. And that doesn't happen so much in the social media aspect as it does in real life. As one author I read this past week as well, he found out he had some condition that was life-threatening. I can't remember if it was cancer or something else. But he wanted to stress to his kids the importance of relationship and community. And this is what he said. He said, I want my children to understand that Twitter will not water their flowers when they're out of town. Facebook is not going to walk their dog, and YouTube will not show up at home with a cooked meal when they're ill. But their local church friends will. Their local church friends will. The next door neighbor will. Actual real-life people will. Don't substitute genuine relationships for superficial ones that are broad yet shallow. And so it got me thinking about the importance for Bridgeway when it comes to building an authentic community. Because here's the deal. You can spend time alone in God's Word, and you should. You can spend time in corporate worship, and you should. But you also need to spend time with other believers in a smaller group context. And so coming up this fall, there's going to be some changes for us when it comes to the small group context, because we want you to be in a setting where you can ask questions, where you can bear each other's burdens. Like this setting right here is not built for you to really connect with each other. This is for us to sing together, for us to hear the word and respond together, but it's not meant for you to build some friendships with people. That's not how this is set up. But a smaller group setting will be. In fact, someone who's new to a church, there are two things that have to happen. Two things that have to happen in order for them to stick around. In the first 6 months, two things have to happen. One, they need to be able to make a friend. And two, they need to be able to find a job to do. Something where they feel plugged in, helping on a regular basis or semi-regular basis. Those two things need to happen. In fact, Tom Rayner, the head of Lifeway, the SBC's education branch, said this: someone in a group is 5 times more likely to stick with a church than someone in worship alone. Someone in a group is 5 times more likely to stick with a church than just coming to a worship service. So let's reinforce the importance of community by looking again at Hebrews. This is a verse I have referenced the past 2 weeks and will continue to reference. Hebrews chapter number 10. And again, it's on the screen if you don't have your Bible. If you do, I encourage you to bring your paper Bible to mark it up or make some notes. But it says this: and let us consider one another in order to stir up love and good works. It does something for us to be together. Verse 25, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. To encourage one another, to lift each other up. Don't take for granted time spent with other believers. This is important. These are relationships that we need to have and we need to build upon. In fact, Zig Ziglar, the motivational speaker, he had an example that he would talk about a Belgian horse. And he said one Belgian horse can pull 8,000 pounds. That's a lot of weight. And you would think if you hooked 2 Belgian horses up together that they'd be able to pull 16,000 pounds, just, 8,000, 8,000. He said, but you'd be wrong. If you hook 2 Belgian horses up together, they can pull not 16,000 pounds, but 24,000 pounds. And if they're trained properly, they can pull up to 32,000 pounds together. And his point was this: people need healthy relationships to win at life too. People need healthy relationships to grow from. And being in a community gives you the chance to be around people at different stages of their faith journey and able to bear each other's burdens. That's the beauty of this. In the fall, our small groups will not be age graded anymore. Part of the reason for that is we're going to have signups. We're going to have hopefully 4 or 5 adult small groups that you can choose from. But we want them to be mixed as far as the ages are concerned, because we all bring something to the table. There's something that all of us can learn and all of us can teach something. I believe that. Everybody in this room is able to learn something, and everybody in this room is able to teach something. And I think there's benefit for all of us if we're in a group with someone that's younger than us or someone that is much older than us. There are life experiences that either have had. You take someone who, let's say you're 60 years old, okay? And the early service laughed at me because I thought that was old, but I I thought 30 was old until I turned 30. So I guess when I turn 60, I'm going to be like, that's not that old. But if you're 60 or 70, you're looking more back at life than you are forwards, correct? I'm 34. I'm looking more forwards at life than I am back. And there's a unique dynamic there where we both can share in life experience. So what life is today for a 34-year-old is different than when you were 34. But you can also give helpful information. And not just, we can talk about it from a scriptural standpoint, how God has grown you in your life, and we can look at it from a parental standpoint. Like I'm still new at this whole parenting game. I've been doing it for 5 years, right? And I've got another kid on the way, so it'll be 3 kids. And if your kids are growing out of the house, there's valuable information there. It would be great for you to share some of your struggles as a parent. Being in a group involves being vulnerable, right? Like, here's some areas, if I could do it over again, this is what I would do. That's gold, right, to us younger folks. And it's important that you share those things. So I believe in us being together in different ages, different stages. This is important. We're at different stages of spiritual maturity. For some of you, you may be older than me, but I've been a believer longer than you have, right? And that can be true in different relationships. There are things I can teach you and things you can teach me, and we learn from each other. So it's important for us to connect with people that we call our faith family. And I'm not saying we don't do that. I'm saying we can do a better job of it. I was telling the earlier service this as well. My goal for Bridgeway is whenever they celebrate their 150th anniversary, think about it, none of us are going to be here, right? We're all going to be gone. And talking 145 years from now. But I hope Bridgeway, God forbid, if one day I'm not going to be the pastor here, right? I'm either going to die, or I'm going to retire, or you guys are going to kick me out, or God might call me to do something else. All those are, could be realities. And my hope for Bridgeway would be that whenever there's a change of guard or any of that, that our faith community is so strong that it's not going to feel like it's built on a person. Though I don't think it is, but if you've ever been in a church where the church is built upon the personality of the pastor, and the pastor is like the foundation instead of, Jesus, you take that out. I've seen churches crumble because their faith community wasn't strong. Man, I hope our faith community is so strong that if Pastor Brandon and I were just gone, you guys would be able to continue. You would miss us, I would hope, for a little bit, but it wouldn't crumble. So, in a sense, we want to empower you to really invest in each other's lives so that when Bridgeway celebrates its 150th anniversary, they're still strong, because I believe our church is going to grow continually. It's grown ever since we've started. We've started a church, and we're moving to a new location. And so with that being said, I think just to reinforce the loving others, there are 3 relationships you need to have in order to have to grow effectively, I think. So obviously your relationship with God, but we'll talk about this from a human perspective. There are 3 relationships you need to have to kind of have that Belgian horse kind of feel where you're connected with someone and you're doing more because you are connected with that person. Let me give you these 3 relationships real quick. Go to Acts chapter 9 in your Bible. Acts chapter 9. And everybody needs to have a Barnabas in their life. Everybody needs to have a Barnabas, a friend. Everybody needs a close friend. You also need to be a close friend. Show yourself friendly. Let me give you the setting here. In Acts chapter 7, Stephen is killed. First Christian martyr, deacon of the church. He's killed. His bloody clothes are taken off of his dead body, and they are laid at the feet of this man named Saul. When you read the beginning of Acts chapter 8, it says that this man named Saul is wreaking havoc of the church. He is a living nightmare for Christians. When you get to chapter 9, this guy Saul gets saved and becomes a Christian himself, right? He becomes Paul. Now, I can understand why people were skeptical of this guy. I mean, couldn't you? If he had arrested some of your family and had them thrown in prison for the same faith you hold, and all of a sudden, just all of a sudden, this guy claims to be a Christian. I mean, I think you might be a little hesitant, right? Like, this guy is probably wanting to know where we're meeting, and he's probably going to have us arrested and probably have some of us killed just like Stephen was killed. Maybe that's what you're thinking. But then you have Barnabas, which his name literally means son of encouragement. He goes, he puts his arm around this guy, and he says, I'm going to be your friend. Check it out. Look at verse 26. And when Saul had come to Jerusalem, he tried to join the disciples, but they were all afraid of him and did not believe that he was a disciple. But Barnabas took him and brought him to the apostles. And he declared to them how he had seen the Lord on the road, and that he had spoken to him, and how he had preached boldly at Damascus in the name of Jesus. Man, he wraps his arm around this guy. And one of the beautiful things about Barnabas is he no longer sees Saul for what he used to be, right? So often, this is just a side note, so often we view people at what they used to be or what they've done. Like this person did this person did that. He doesn't look at Saul that way. It's not what he used to be, it's what he's become because of Jesus that's important to Barnabas. And not only does he see what he can become, I mean, he's looking, I think, down the road that God's got great things in store for this guy. And he wraps his arm around him. Everybody's scared of him. Barnabas takes a risk. And he's willing to basically be vulnerable. If you're going to be a friend with someone, a true friend is going to be vulnerable. He's going to be able to put themselves out there. You need to have a Barnabas in your life. Does it mean you're always going to agree with them? No, not necessarily. In fact, Paul and Barnabas didn't agree on everything. After the first missionary trip for Paul and Barnabas, that was the last missionary trip for Paul and Barnabas together. They want to take another missionary trip, and Barnabas wants to take John Mark, the same guy who wrote the Gospel of Mark. And, of course, he hadn't written the Gospel at this point. So he wants to take John Mark. Hey, John Mark, let's take John Mark with us. And Paul's like, no, we're not taking him. Because John Mark was with them for a little bit on the missionary journey, and then he quit. And Paul's like, he's a quitter. I'm not taking him. He left us high and dry. And Barnabas is like, no, we need to take this guy. And it says there was a sharp contention between the two, so that they went separate ways. Like, man, that stinks. Now, I think that was of God, because I think you have two juggernauts of the faith going in different directions. God's going to use them in great ways. Though we don't hear any more about Barnabas so much, but I believe God used him in a mighty way. Later on, in one of Paul's writings, I believe somewhere down the line, Paul and Barnabas made up. Because Paul asked for John Mark. He says, hey, send John Mark because he's beneficial to the ministry. So somewhere down the line, Paul saw that Barnabas was right and probably talked to his friend. They worked it out. And of course, John Mark ends up writing one of the Gospels. You need to have a Barnabas. Why is it beneficial? Proverbs tells us. Take a look. Proverbs 27. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. Your friends can say things in your life that can be hurtful, but beneficial. They can say things that other people probably couldn't get away with, but their words are going to carry more weight because they know you and you know them. Verse 17, take a look. As iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. To be able to grow from each other, to bounce things off one another. Friendship is essential. You need to have a Barnabas, you need to be a Barnabas, okay? The next thing you need, healthy relationships and a faith community. You have Barnabas, and then you have Paul. You need to have a Paul in your life, meaning a teacher, someone to pour into you. You need to pursue someone like that. And then you're thinking, I don't know who would want to pour into me, or I don't know where to start with that, Brent. Then you need to ask God, Lord, I need someone that's willing to pour into my life. And pray and ask God. You have not because you ask God. Lord, send someone in my life that can speak to me and pour into me, would care for me. And this doesn't mean the person will always, be contacting you every week or every single day or texting you or messaging you all the time. Someone who's a Paul can pour into you in short spurts here and there. I have a Paul in my life, and I actually talked to him last week. His name is Tom Wagner. He did the first revival for Bridgeway. And I met him several years ago, and just from the get-go, I knew this is the guy God planted in my life to pour into me, and he would do just that. I mean, he'd ask questions about everything, my family, my life, and which is great for church planners, because church planners, a lot of times, they get put on this little island, and they're by themselves, and it's like you're isolated for a little bit. And it didn't have to be that way. And Tom made sure I didn't feel that way so much. And so he, for a pastor, like myself, to have someone who's done it for a long time, and someone, he pastors a church of some 1,300 people, and he just takes some time to call and say, hey, what's going on, man? That's huge, right? And he consistently takes time to pour into me. Pursue a call. Ask God, Lord, have someone in my life that can pour into me. And then the next thing, you need to have a Timothy. You need to have someone you can pour into. Someone that what you've received, how you've grown, you're regurgitating, so to speak, and you're giving it back to them. Kind of like those penguins on planet Earth, They go and get the fish, and that's a horrible example, isn't it? I shouldn't have used that one. They throw up the food for the babies. It's pretty nasty. So let's just think of something different where you're helping someone else. All right, Paul training in Timothy. But you need to have someone that you can pour into. And this is going to do something for you as an individual, as a Paul. It's going to hold you accountable. It's going to also bless your heart. I like what John said in 3 John. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in truth. This helps grow you. This helps mature you. So have someone you're pouring into. 3 relationships you need to have. You need to have a friend, you need to have a teacher, and you need to have a student. If you don't have all 3 of those, you need to have those 3. Another benefit for biblical community is it can be fun. Psalm 133 verse 1, behold, how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. Again, community is around a common goal and common interest, and it's so we can enjoy each other. Now, I know the stereotype for Christians is that we can be boring and have absolutely no fun whatsoever, but I don't believe that stereotype. It might be true for other churches. I don't believe it's true for us. But number 3, community fosters personal discovery. Again, this is going to be set up in the fall where you can ask questions and you can even challenge certain things, because what we're going to do is the small group time is going to be mostly discussion. It's going to be based off the sermons. So like I'm preaching today, and so if we had small groups on a Sunday, or maybe your small groups on a Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever they have it, you would be discussing the sermon from the previous week. And so if you had questions that popped in your head during corporate worship, then you would address those in your small group time. Because what we want you to do is to just chew on what we've been talking about as corporate worship. So in the fall, that's going to change for you to do that. So there can be some personal discovery there. You can give some feedback. You can ask questions, which is, again, going to lead into conversations about life, conversations about faith. And spiritual growth happens better when we're in a community. I also believe that personal discovery involves some of you becoming leaders yourself. Maybe you don't think you're a leader at this point, but I think, because our goal is these small groups are going to be up to 12 people. When we get 12 people, we're going to start a new small group. And some of you, God is going to turn you into a leader. And maybe you don't see it right now, but He does. And it's so cool because God often sees what we can't. If you would ask me, when I was a teenager, what do you want to be? It wouldn't be a preacher, because I was terrified to be in front of people. That's why I delayed getting baptized for 2 years, because I knew I had to get in front of the church and get baptized. And I was like, I'm going to do it on a Wednesday night when nobody is there. And that's exactly what I did, because I was so scared. And I believe God is going to grow some of you in a way where you can lead a small group of people. And then finally, number 4, the importance of community. Not only is it for personal discovery or having fun or encouragement, it's also going to allow us as a church to fill in the gaps. And what do I mean by that? By filling in the gaps? I believe Bridgeway is going to continue to grow. I know I've said that a couple times. We've never had a year where we haven't grown. And again, moving to a larger space, we're going to involve more people. I'm so pumped about the amount of people that have committed to serve. Like, our engagement is skyrocketing right now because of how many people have committed to whether being on the setup and tear down team or the hospitality team. Because pulling this off in the fall when we move to the school is going to require work out of all of us. And you guys have really stepped up. But these smaller groups, as the church grows, also allows us to pay close attention to the needs of others. Let me put it this way. Whether Bridgeway becomes a church of 200, 300, 400, that's not my ultimate concern. Because results belong to God. Our job is to be faithful, right? And I want you all to be engaged. I want you to be serving. But let's say, Bridgeway grows to those kind of heights. I'm not going to be able to check on everybody, right? Like, our church is small enough now where I can do that. In fact, here's the thing. When you're gone 2 or 3 weeks here, now, I understand if you're on vacation. We've got a lot of people on vacation right now. Or if you have to work for a period of time, I get that. But sometimes y'all are just lazy, right? I got to chase after you. 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to check on you. Not to stalk you or anything weird like that, but just to see, hey, is there something that you need, or is there something that your church family can help with? But here's the kicker. People expect to hear from me or Pastor Brandon. They expect to hear from their pastor. In fact, it's like if we didn't check on you, it'd be like, well, my pastor, he just doesn't care. He doesn't, want to check up on us. The reality is, though, it carries more weight when people hear from you. Seriously. If you notice someone's not here, it does more for that person that you contact them than me, because they expect me to do it. They don't expect it from you. And as our church grows, and we push you to get into small groups, because we want to get you from loving God and corporate worship to a small group. When someone's not there, your group is checking on them. Your group is caring for them or meeting whatever need they might have, because it will come to a point where I won't be able to check up on everybody as much. And that's fine, because again, we want the church to operate not based upon just one person, but as a community of believers who care for each other. And so it carries more weight if you check on those folks than if I do all by myself. So with that being said, it allows us to fill in any gaps. We don't want anybody to slip through the cracks here at Bridgeway. So a community, small groups is going to allow us to do that. You're going to be in your small groups for 9 months. So like, if you really don't like the group of people you're in, well, you're with them for 9 months, okay? You'll learn to like them. But seriously, 9 months is you're going to spend time together. You're going to study the Word together. You're going to do activities together. You're going to be with those people and get to know them and bear each other's burdens. Now, there's opportunities right now to get in a small group for the summer. We have a ladies group and a men's group. Our marriage group is already full, but we have those 2 groups where you can get to know other people at this church. So, with that being said, we want you to love others and connect with a small group and fellowship with other believers. I can't stress how important this is. If you fail to do that, you're going to have a hard time doing the last one, serving people within the church and serving those without Christ. Because a lot of our personal growth happens in the love others section. Now, I know that might be awkward for some of you. Like, I just don't do well in a small group, or I feel uncomfortable. That's okay. It's okay to be uncomfortable. I mean, in fact, your Christian growth happens most of the time when you're uncomfortable, when things are not as easy as you would like them to be. It's showing that you are maturing in your faith. And so once we get you from the corporate worship connected into a small group, we're going to challenge you to serve like Jesus, serving within the church and serving those without Christ. I can't stress the importance of this. There's only 3 things we're asking you to do, church. And I believe you can do all 3 of those things, and you can do them effectively. And we're going to encourage you to do that, because you need a friend, you need a Paul, and you need a Timothy. And you're going to find that in a small group setting. With that said, let's pray. Let's bow together this morning. And I want to